I'm Luca Giliberti, contributing writer for Gold Derby, and I'm joined today by Lisa Ann Walter, who plays Melissa Chimenti on Abbott Elementary. And Lisa, something that I've liked as Abbott has progressed is that we've gotten to see glimpses of Melissa's vulnerability. And I feel like that's never been more so the case than in season 3. So, on a broader note, what has been exciting and maybe even daunting or challenging about tapping more and more into Melissa's vulnerability, especially, in the genre within which you're operating here on Abbott?
Well, one of the wonderful things about being on Abbott is that the writers and our incredible ensemble cast is not constrained by stereotypes for the characters, that we set up who these people were in season 1. But Quinta is very bright, and our writing staff is very capable and talented, and all of them really understood that sitcoms can go one or two ways, especially on network. You can either tell your story in the pilot season, because that's what they always used to say. You're just retelling, who these characters are all the way through so people know them. Well, people embraced us like we were family pretty much after the first episode. They knew who we were. The writing is sharp, it's smart, our acting is nuanced. And so them understanding who we were happened really quickly. It was not a heavy lift. So going into ensuing seasons, the writers were really able to tell stories that were right for the characters in terms of their point of view and the tone that each character tends to take, but change things up a little bit. Janelle is not the same Ava that we saw season 1, and that happened within the first season. I think we saw a lot from Melissa in season 2. There was growth. There was seeing her at home. There were seeing soft moments, which as we know, in any hard exterior character, that hard exterior is there to protect the mushy, soft insides. Yes. And I think that the more we saw Melissa helping a student with a reading disability like she had when she was younger, in this season, we see her not being so, I don't think Melissa was ever one note. I mean, I certainly didn't play it that way, but I think that every line can be nuanced a slightly different way. Yes, every once in a while, Melissa's going to say, yeah, I know Kevin Hart's barber. He owes me. I know a guy. Like, that'll come out, but it's not the entirety of her character. So I don't, I think what I would find challenging, Luca, is if I were asked to play one note over and over. That would be challenging. Having a multifaceted and multi-layered character is a joy. It's a joy for an actor. It's a joy for me personally, because I have those sides. So it's just accessing it. And I'm lucky in that my rainbow of emotions are easily accessed. They are readily available.
Well, let's get into some of those emotions and also some of the layers that you mentioned, because you've talked about how you were kind of concerned about Melissa's decision to break up with Gary, because you were kind of concerned about how that would be, received by viewers. But I have to say, personally, I found it incredibly refreshing to see that she was able to tell Gary that she doesn't need to be convinced, right? She's been in a marriage, she doesn't want to do it again, and she knows that that is her truth. So how much do you think it's taken for her to kind of arrive at a point where she's not only able to acknowledge, but is also able to openly profess that this is her truth?
Well, there's a couple of things going on with that. And thank you for being so in tune to the fullness of that relationship, because Gary, played by Bruno Amato, is an adorable man. He is delightful. He's nice to her. He is expressive about really loving Melissa. And so you don't want to hurt somebody like that. Melissa doesn't want to hurt him. Lisa feels terrible about hurting Bruno and Gary. Like, I don't want to shove this guy away from me. However, she knows that he wants all of it. He wants the whole relationship. And I will tell you personally, at this stage of my life, I speak about this with my best friend, Elaine Hendricks. It was my co-star on The Parent Trap. As you get older, you are less inclined to say, I need that guy or that gal next to me every single day. I like my free time. I like that I have my life set up and I have time for my family, time for my friends, and that I also, want to have a little every now and then, but it doesn't have to be, that doesn't complete me. I don't need that to make me an entire human being. I'm already that, but this guy does. And so I don't want to be selfish and take him away from the future that he is looking for. It's a hard decision to make. And the reason I was worried is because women are, listen, I see them online. I see women talking about, how hard it is to find a partner as they get older. And I didn't want them looking at Melissa like, how are you just chucking this guy away without understanding how hard it is to find, a potential mate, and getting mad at her. And Quinto's, as again, very smart. That's not your guy. That's not him. Maybe not yet. But I always say, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? You never know if somebody's going to come back around. We've got hopefully a few more seasons to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I also find really compelling is that, she's kind of hesitant to tell her BFF Barb, about this casual romance that she then has with Captain Robinson, because she's kind of worried that Barb, who has been in a marriage for more than 30 years, that she wouldn't really understand this type of relationship. So what was your reaction to reading that in the script for the first time? And how did you kind of work that into your understanding of Barb's and Melissa's friendship?
As we go into further seasons on the show, the writers get to know us more and more. They feel within us as actors, but how we relate to the characters and sort of similarities. And the truth is, I don't know that I would be all that forthcoming with Sheryl Lee Ralph about some kind of whoring it up that I was personally doing, because it's just not who she is. I mean, it's enough that she came to see me do stand-up. I was so concerned that it would shock her and she would be horrified. But she was like, it's the first time I've laughed out loud at a stand-up. So she can take it. But it doesn't mean that those around her, because she's so fraught with elegance. And what's the word that I was thinking of this morning? It's not just lady, and it's not just grand. It's regal. She's regal. Barbara is regal. And so people are not necessarily going to be, I mean, even Ava on the show will make one of her smart mouth Ava comments and then go, oh, sorry. Because you just don't want to do that around Barbara. So it made total sense to me that my character would, the backstory that I was using at playing Melissa for those beats was that really it was Jacob that was the one that was like, oh, have fun. Look, I got 6 guys and I'm checking out. I'm swiping right more than 2/3 of the time. 2/3 of the time I'm swiping right. Why are you sitting at home? Like, have some fun. So in my head, he was encouraging her to enjoy. And because she has him as an ear in her house now, she doesn't need to tell every single thing to Barbara. So I think that's what I was using in terms of the choices, and being a little bit not ashamed, because what I find wild about some of the character traits that the writers have written, and the one somebody asked me recently in an interview, what's the craziest thing about Melissa? And I said, she's got a fire truck fetish, not just fireman, fire truck. Yeah. That is specific and weird. And I love it. I just love it. So having it, kind of bleed over into the like, and I'll take the guy who's riding on the truck too. It makes sense. So I was digging it. And plus I love Mike O'Malley. He's so much fun to work with.
I think any Glee fan especially was probably very excited, has been very excited to see him on the show. Yeah.
They were very excited, and they've been very supportive of him with, I mean, we haven't really seen them, together in terms of being in love, except for, in the reveal of the, and then that's just looks. And you know what's so funny, Luca, is I thought, when we first kind of had a little spark in the smoking episode, and we just kind of gave each other the look, I was like, oh, we inspired the writers to write more for these two. Like, I was giving that a moment. And then I found out Quinta said, no, we had that planned. I was like, okay, I'm not quite as smart as I thought I was.
They're always a step ahead of you.
Yeah, what's up with that? They didn't tell me.
They didn't
tell me any of that. So I must be psychic.
Yeah. Well, who knows? No.
One or the other.
Or maybe both. No.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I love that you mentioned Jacob, because that kind of takes us to our Melissa's newfound friendship with him, because like you say, he moves into her apartment after he breaks up with his boyfriend Zach, and he's kicked out. And I kind of completely agree with you, because I feel like he's kind of a foil to Melissa, isn't he? Because I mean, for instance, he is someone who doesn't think it is necessary to, label a relationship, which I feel like really helps her at this stage in her life. So what do you think So what do you think it means to Melissa to have him enter his life at this specific time in her life?
Well, so great how you frame that. I think when we first see the Melissa Jacob dynamic, he's afraid of her. She doesn't try to assuage his fear in any way. She's fine that he's afraid of her. She doesn't really trust that he's going to stick around. She feels like he is this kind of judgy hipster, he's got all of his theories, and she doesn't have time for him. She rejects out of hand anything that he says just because it comes out of his mouth, which is terrible and unfair, but it's very Melissa to be like, you're in this category of human. I don't need to give you any credence for anything you have to say. And then I think as the seasons progress, and people reveal more of themselves, and he's sticking around, and she sees him coming up with ideas, helping Janine, being someone that she sort of has a now familial kind of your kid brother material, your cousin material, then she's able to more kind of relax around him. And then them moving in together, I think that he becomes somebody that she gets to feed at home. That's how we show love. In real life, I feed Chris Perfetti because he's living in LA. He doesn't have his Italian family around him. So I invite him for every award show. He's at the house prepping, and with me, we get ready together. And for all the holidays, I invite him. And he's a love. It's easy to want to take care of him. And I think that him giving her you don't have to be stuck in where you think your life is right now. You could explore, you could have fun. Maybe you should travel. Maybe, we could try this new thing at school, because Melissa and Barbara are very much, we know what works. We know what doesn't work. It's the reason why the Jacob and Janine duo can kind of, rustle things up, can kind of make it, try to come up with things that are new ideas. And that's now become something that Barbara and Melissa say, well, maybe it does work sometimes, because originally it was like, stop, don't try. It's just going to lead to heartbreak. Just don't do anything. And now I think both in the school setting and in the home setting, this young person is able to say to Melissa, something different maybe. Why don't you try quinoa? Maybe you won't hate it. And then, of course, Melissa hates it. But she tried it.
She tried it. And that's
make fun of it. Yeah, she gets to make fun of it for a couple episodes because it's disgusting.
Yeah. And, you kind of mentioned how before all of this, Melissa, kind of like all the other characters on the show, kind of teased or spent most of the time kind of teasing Jacob, because it's just so easy to do. So how much fun was it to get to explore and get to develop a completely different dynamic with Chris Perfetti in this season, especially, after he moves in to Melissa's apartment?
Yeah, I loved it. I really did. I mean, just the rehearsals where we were at Melissa's place and finding the shared love of the Real Housewives of New Jersey and bonding over stupid, seasoning on popcorn, and finding the moments of discovery of no way. you know? Oh my God, no, that's my show. It just felt like it was, it's what acting should be. It's discovery, it's newness. It's like that beat of, oh, no way, you, oh my God, now you're like me and I embrace you. And okay, nobody else gets to fuck with you because you're under my wing now. And it was awesome. I loved it. I all of those found moments. And Chris is such a joy to work with. I mean, everybody on the show is. Chris, like me, we're both at theater background people, like Cheryl too. And so finding those moments in rehearsal is spectacular. It's what you live for as an actor.
Yeah, and I absolutely just loved watching that relationship unfold, and I can't wait to see where it
Thank
goes.
you. I think, I
Yeah.
mean, for me personally, just to have me bleed over into Melissa for a moment,
Mhm.
I am, and my entire life has been this way, that I've been surrounded by gay men and women. And I have such an affinity for the community that it felt weird to not embrace Jacob. So I'm real happy that that's where we are now.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And I have
Yeah.
room for one more question, and I really have to talk about Melissa's impressions in episode 10 because I was like crying from laughter watching them, and that doesn't happen very often, let me tell you that. So how much fun was it doing these impressions, and how difficult is it to do such bad impressions?
Okay. Such a good question. Thank you for asking. I, first of all, I tend to mimic people. It's actually how I began being funny as a kid, mimicking teachers, other students, my mother. I would do impressions of the people around us, and then I branched out and started doing, and I'm not an impressionist. I am not Matt Friend. I'm not, somebody who, like, I don't call myself an impressionist. I just mimic different types or regional accents, things like that, right? The writers knew it, and they also have decided that it's very funny that Melissa is terrible at it and does it all the time, thinks she's really talented at it. One of the things that's hardest to do as an actor is to do something like less well than you could do it if you tried. Like being a bad singer, singing off key, just slightly off key, is really hard. I find playing stupid, like genuinely stupid, not educated, but genuinely dumb, is quite difficult. Because if you as a person know a thing, to act like you don't know it as truth for you is hard. So acting bad impressions, one of the ways that I pulled it off, it's hand to God. I looked at the script. I saw Melissa's doing impressions on that episode. I didn't even touch it until table read. At table read, I just swung with whatever I thought was that impression. And it was quite, some of them were okay. Like, who can't do Matthew McConaughey, right? Like, who can't do that? Yeah, all right, all right, all right. Anybody could do that. Some of the other ones, like I'm doing Stallone, which I've never done. It's a very deep register, way deeper than me. Stallone, then De Niro as Stallone, or vice versa. I can't remember. And then I just did it in the room, and people were crying. I don't, to this day, I don't know what I did except I did the lip. I did the lip as Stallone, and I did like hands as De Niro. And other than that, the voice was it was just awful. It was terrible. One of the ones that they said was, does some indiscriminate accent that's like a catchphrase, like he ain't going to show up. There was nothing in there saying like, do it like Droopy Dog or do it like Southern. I just did it, because hey, I ain't going to show up, and they were just crying, laughing. Patrick Schumacher, he's one of our EPs. Patrick Shoemaker, he was on set, but they were watching it. The writers' room were watching as we were shooting, and they came down literally crying, like we were just watching, and it's ridiculous.
Well, and you're gonna make me cry again from laughter.
Oh, it was so dumb. It's just so dumb. Don't make me do it again. I'm pretty convinced.
Well, I think that's kind of a perfect note for us to end on here today, Lisa. Thank you so, so much for taking the time to talk to me about Abbott season 3, about Melissa and everything else around her.
Thank
It was such a
you. Thank
pleasure.
you, Luca. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for taking time with me.
Of course.